The message didn't arrive with a scream. It slid onto Cassian Rourke's phone like it took a wrong turn. He sat at a glass table, half listening to words like eviction phases and closure savings when the blue bubble lit up beside his hand. Help me. He pressed his thumb over the screen, hiding it out of habit. The CFO's laser pointer tapped on a slide with Salvage Heights in neat letters. If we clear that complex in phases, we avoid protests, avoid headlines, and lock in savings by year-end. No one saw that Cassian's focus was gone. He told himself it was a mistake. Wrong number. Someone drunk, someone dramatic, someone else's problem. He shifted in his chair and tried to glue his eyes back to the bars on the screen. Numbers climbed as his pulse did. The phone buzzed again. He broke my ribs. The words were small and flat, like they had no idea how heavy they were. The boardroom felt too bright for that sentence. We'll offer minimal relocation. Stipends, the CFO said. Legally sound, minimal blowback. Around the table, people acted like the only pain that mattered was the spreadsheet. If you saw a message like that on your own phone, would you pretend you never did? Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Cassian unlocked his phone under the table. His fingers moved before his mind could build an excuse. Who is this? He typed. The reply came at once. McKenna. I thought this was my sister's phone. I'm sorry. Wrong number. You texted the wrong man, he thought. You have no idea who I am. Are you safe right now? His thumb hovered. Then he hit send. On the far side of the room, someone laughed at a joke about low-income churn. The phone stayed dark. No dots. No reply. He stared at the chart with Salvage Heights listed as a noisy holding. The silence from his phone stretched until he convinced himself she had changed her mind or passed out. Then another blue bubble slid into view. He went out. I think my ribs are broken. I don't want the neighbors to hear me cry again. A second later, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have bothered you. Bothered me. The thought landed harder than it should have. He pushed his chair back. The scrape of the legs on the floor snapped heads toward him. We're done, he said. Email me the numbers. I'll review alone. The CFO blinked. A director opened his mouth, then closed it when Cassian's eyes met his. Cassian walked out. The door sighed shut behind him. In the hallway, the air felt cooler. He stopped by the window and typed, slower now. Where are you? The pause dragged. East Salvage, Building D4B. He read it twice. Salvage Heights. One of his noisy holdings had just turned into a single door. Imagine seeing a message like that and then going back to your slides like nothing happened. Cassian didn't go back. He walked past the elevator that led to his private floors and headed down. He slid into the back seat of his car. Where to, sir? The driver asked. Cassian glanced at the last blue bubble on his screen, at the thin line between a clean report and a broken rib. East Salvage, he said. Building D, Apartment 4B. The driver hesitated, then pulled away from the glass tower toward a part of the city he had never seen at all. Sir, this can't be right. The driver stared at the balconies and stained brick. Salvage Heights leaned over the street like it wanted to fall forward. By the door, his company logo peeled from a rusted sign. 5 floors up, a curtain moved. This was the place the board called Projected Closure Savings. It's the right address, Cassian said. Stay with the car. Lock it. He stepped onto the sidewalk. Music thumped from somewhere above. A baby cried and then cut off. A boy on a small bike stared at the black sedan, then at the man in the suit. If you saw that, what would you think he was here to do? Inside, the lobby was narrow and tired. The elevator doors were closed, a faded out-of-order sign taped crooked across them. He stared at it, remembering the clean slide that had turned this building into a single line on a chart. Then he pushed into the stairwell and began to climb. The air in the stairwell was warm and stale. On one landing, a TV shouted fake laughter. On another, a couple argued in low, sharp bursts. Somewhere above, a cough rattled deep in someone's chest. His polished shoes clicked too loud on the concrete. By the fourth floor, even his breathing sounded like it didn't belong here. The hallway light buzzed and flickered overhead. Numbers were written on tape beside peepholes. 4A, 4C, 4D. The door between them had no number, just a pale rectangle where one had been. His phone still showed the last text. Building, D. 4B. He knocked. Metal scraped. A chain slid. The door opened a few inches. One dark eye watched him. Yes? She said. Her voice was low, steady, not the panicked whisper from his screen. McKenna? He asked. The eye moved over his face, his coat, the phone in his hand. The chain slid back, slow. The door opened. She wore a plain black dress with a white collar. A bruise sat on her left cheekbone. Her left arm stayed close to her ribs. You shouldn't be here, she said. You texted me, he answered. I texted my sister, she replied. I changed one digit wrong. He hesitated. If you want me gone, say it. I'll leave. She studied him for a beat. You climbed 4 flights in those shoes, she said. I don't think you came for nothing. She stepped back. He walked inside the room. The apartment was small but strict. Cleaning bottles lined the counter in a neat row, labels all facing forward. A thin blanket was folded tight on the couch. No clutter, no softness, just control. You live alone? He asked. Yes, she said. It's easier that way. No, one asking why you breathe like it hurts. His eyes went to her side. You said he broke your ribs, Cassian said. She moved toward the sink, fingertips brushing the counter for balance. He likes to shout, she said. Big house, long halls, people who jump when he clears his throat. Sometimes shouting isn't enough. His hands finish what his voice starts. He didn't need to ask who. Your employer, he said. My employer, she answered. I scrub his floors so his wife doesn't see what walls saw, she said. I wash his shirts so no one asks why the buttons tore. I can't wash this. She touched her ribs and flinched. You need a doctor, he said. I'll pay. She watched him. Men like him don't fear pain, McKenna said. They fear losing the house they shout in. 2 fractures, the doctor said. Left side. Here and here. He tapped the cracks on the X-ray. No surgery, but she needs rest. No lifting, no bending. No, stairs if she can help it. McKenna sat on the edge of the table, paper rustling under her. Her hand squeezed the metal. No stairs, she said. You should come tell my building that. The doctor glanced at Cassian. She waited too long. If she keeps moving like nothing's wrong, it'll heal crooked. I had rooms to finish, McKenna said. Sheets don't change themselves. Pretending I'm fine is part of the job. She looked at the ceiling. How long until I can carry a bucket again? 6 weeks at least, he answered. Longer if you try to impress anyone. Good, she said. No one's impressed by maids. When the doctor left, she pulled her dress up in slow, shallow moves. How much? She asked. Mr. Rourke has already... I want the number, she said, eyes on Cassian. 800, the doctor replied. She nodded. You own this building too? No, not this one. Just mine, she said. The one with the dead elevator and the hot and cold heat. She eased herself to the floor, breath catching. And the house on the hill where he shouts. You know who I am, Cassian said. I know your letters, she answered. White logo in the corner, black words under it. Late payment. Warning. Final notice. I stacked them on his desk. You read them? I picked them up when he threw them, she said. I wiped his spit off your name. That part was always clean. The truth hit harder than the X-ray. My firm manages his properties, investments, contracts. Big names on the same chain, she said. He owns my hours. You own his walls. Between you own the room where he decided my ribs could take it. She laid her palm over the tape. Feels like shared custody. You live in a building I own, he said. You get hurt in a house I keep profitable. See, McKenna said, you can count. Come work for me instead, Cassian said. She narrowed her eyes. You want a maid. I want someone who sees what other people pretend not to see, he said. You already do that for a man who thinks your pain is part of the rent. And what do you think it is? A debt, he said. One I can start paying. You talk like pain is a bill, she said. You clear it and it's gone. What happens when the next woman sends a message to the wrong number? I can give you a room in my house, Cassian said. A salary. Work that doesn't tear those ribs again. And I can make sure he never has keys to any building with my name on it. You really think your reach is that clean? I think I've let other people use it for too long. I can pull it back. McKenna looked at the X-ray, at the thin white breaks. How many people live under names we never bother to read? She asked. Your letters sat in his study for years. You only moved when one of my messages slipped into your pocket. He had no answer. Fine, Mr. Rourke, she said. I'll come see the house my ribs paid for. She walked out, one hand on her side. As he watched her go, he understood the risk he'd taken. He hadn't pulled her into his world. He'd invited the damage his name had done to live under his roof. The first thing McKenna noticed was that the house had no sound of struggle. No slammed doors, no walls shaking. Just trimmed trees, clean glass, and a river behind it. The car drove away, leaving her at the gate with one small suitcase and taped ribs. The door opened before she could knock. A woman in a dark suit stood there, straight as the frame. You must be McKenna, she said. I'm Ms. Lan. You answer to me. You'll be on light duties, laundry, ironing, stock counts, no lifting, no running stairs. If you're in pain, you report it. My last employer liked the snapping part, McKenna said. This one doesn't, Ms. Lan replied. They climbed wide stairs. On the top floor, under a slanted ceiling, Ms. Lan opened a door. Your room. White walls, narrow bed, a small wardrobe that closed without sticking. A square of sky over the pillow. It's simple but quiet, Ms. Lan said. Meals downstairs at set times. You don't enter private suites unless assigned. If you're unsure, you ask. Understood, McKenna said. She set the suitcase down and stood still. No mold, no peeling paint, no old anger in the walls. Safe, she thought. But whose safety did this place really protect? Him or her? Think about that. From his office balcony, Cassian watched her cross the courtyard. From above, she seemed small, but her head moved in short, sharp turns. She didn't admire the river view. Her eyes checked doors, cameras, side paths. When she vanished inside, he stayed at the rail. The changes showed up in small things. His coffee arrived at 7:30 a.m. Dark, 1 sugar, no cream, hot every time. It had always been ordered that way, but now it was right. A few days later, the stack of maintenance reports that usually slumped on his side table was gone. In its place lay a neat, clipped bundle. Small yellow notes stuck from the edges in tight handwriting. Past deadline. No signature. Who marked these? He asked. We sent them up like always, his assistant said, but not with notes. In the service corridor, Ms. Lan watched McKenna fold linen into clean lines. You changed the supply order, Ms. Lan said. You cut 3 polishes and half the cleaner the vendor pushes. They made smell, not clean, McKenna said. You were paying for labels. I left what worked. You've been here 3 days and already know that? I know dust, McKenna said, and I know when numbers lie. The next morning, Cassian opened his calendar and frowned. The call with investors about East Salvage, set for 9, now sat at 9:30. He hadn't moved it. There was no notice. He checked the log. The change had been made the day before from the household terminal. Before he could react, his phone rang. Mr. Rourke. City Ledger, a woman said. We've had complaints about Salvage Heights. Leaks, broken systems, hard eviction threats. We're running a story. Do you want to comment? If she'd called at 9, he would have been in a glass room. Instead, he was alone. I'll review conditions at Salvage Heights myself, he said. No one gets pushed out until I've seen it. After he hung up, he opened the log again. Household terminal. Someone had reached into his day and moved one call by 30 minutes. He pictured the small room under the skylight, the woman who used to dust his name off threatening letters. For the first time, he wondered if bringing McKenna into his home meant his calendar and his buildings were no longer only his. This doesn't sound like you. The note sat in the margin of a scanned contract in small, even handwriting. Cassian read it twice. The clause it pointed to let a partner walk away if a building failed inspection, owing almost nothing. His legal team called it standard. Whoever wrote this note clearly did not. Did one of you add comments before scanning these? He asked in the morning meeting. The lawyers shook their heads. His assistant frowned. We don't write like that, she said, and we don't mark your copies. Each page in the stack had a yellow tag. Late, missing signature, no proof of work done. IT traced the scans. These came from the servant wing copier, they said. Laundry side. Cassian saw the narrow hall, the hum of machines, McKenna folding sheets into straight lines. If your contracts were held in hands like hers, would you feel safer? Or exposed? That night the house was quiet. Dinner was over. When Cassian walked into the kitchen, the lights were low. McKenna stood at the stove, stirring a pot. Steam curled around her face. I thought the chef left hours ago, he said. He did, McKenna answered. His son had another attack. Ms. Lon told him to stay. So who is cooking? Cassian asked. She tasted from the spoon, added salt. The fridge was dying, she said. Food would have spoiled. I moved what I could to the backup and made the rest into stew. The fridge repair was scheduled next month, he said. It was scheduled yesterday after I called, she replied. I used the number on the sticker. I told them the owner was unhappy and that he hated wasting food he already paid for. You pretended to be me, he said. I pretended to be someone whose voice matters to them, she said. Same machine. Different sound. She poured stew into a bowl and slid it across the counter. Her ribs made her move in short, careful shifts. You changed my calendar, he said. The East Salvage call. She wiped the rim with a cloth. I don't know how to touch your days, she said. Saw a computer left open in the staff hall. Boxes with times. I only know how to move towels from one shelf to another. But that box moved, he said. And a reporter reached me at the only time I could answer. McKenna met his eyes. You think clocks answer to maids now? I think you're smarter than you act, he said, and more dangerous. She set a spoon beside the bowl. Eat it before it cools, she said. It's easier to swallow truth when something warm comes with it. He ate. How many people tried to fix that fridge before you? He asked. Everyone talked about it, she said. No one called. It is hard to dial when you think your name won't move anything. Imagine how many problems get fixed only when the right voice complains. How many times have you walked past something broken because it wasn't breaking you? He finished the bowl. The house settled around him. Upstairs, the river threw weak light on his window. He lay down, with the echo of her words in his head. Near midnight, his phone lit on the nightstand. New mail. No subject. just a file named Home DEMP4 waiting. Cassian stared at the name. His thumb hovered, then pressed. The video opened with a shaking frame and the sound of water hitting metal, slow and constant as the camera turned toward a dark ceiling that looked ready to fall. Water hit a metal pan beside the bed in slow, sharp drops. That was the first sound Cassian heard. The video shook as someone tried to hold the phone still. The camera turned toward a small shape on the mattress, a kid curled on his side, blanket damp at the edges. A woman's voice whispered, "Don't move the bowl, baby. We'll fix it next week," they promised. The ceiling above them was stained and cracked. Each drop hit the pan like a clock. On the wall, half cut off by the frame, hung a crooked notice. Even blurry, Cassian knew the logo. His company, his name, clean against black mold. He turned the sound up. In the background, a TV played. The mother's voice shook when she said, "I went to the office again. They said the work order is in progress." The kid coughed, thin and dry. Cassian stopped the video and called security. "Trace the sender," he said. "Anonymous email. I want the IP, the building, everything." "Could be a fake," security said. "Could be someone trying to shake you down." "The logo is real," Cassian replied. "So is the water." By morning, 2 more emails waited. The first held an audio file. A man's voice said, "If you keep filing complaints, I'll call immigration. You'll be gone by the end of the week." There was a sharp breath, a chair leg scraping. Then the file cut off. The second email carried photos, a hallway lined with mold that climbed the corners, a front door with no lock where the latch should be, a fire escape blocked by a dead fridge and 2 busted chairs. In every shot, you could find his logo if you knew where to look. Legal crowded his office. "Someone is building a narrative," one of them said. "Leaking curated pieces. This looks like a coordinated hit." "It looks like evidence," Cassian said. "Our buildings, our managers, our logo on every wall." "We can argue context," another lawyer said. "Age of the building, tenant neglect, shared responsibility." "Argue that to the kid under the leak," he said. "See if his lawyer buys it when this goes public." At 10, his CFO stormed in with a folder. "We have buyers lined up for Salvage Heights," he said. "We're days from signing. If this kind of story breaks now, they walk. We lose 8 figures. "We halt the sale," Cassian said. The CFO stared. "You can't be serious. Do you want to die with that place around your neck?" "I want to know what I'm selling," Cassian answered. "We fix what we can. We don't hand a live bomb to someone else and pretend we never pulled the pin." "The board won't like this," the CFO said. "They like money more than bad press," Cassian replied. "Tell them I'm buying time." The CFO left. Cassian stayed at the window. The estate spread out below, trimmed trees, clean stone, quiet paths. No leaks in the ceilings here, no blocked fire escapes. His phone buzzed. Another email slid in. One image, a stairwell shot from the top down, concrete steps worn smooth. The light fixture hung empty, only wires left. The bottom of the stairs sank into shadow. Under the photo, one line waited. "How many of these do you own without knowing?" Cassian looked from the screen to his river, to the glass between his house and the wind. For the first time, he wondered if the person holding the camera had once knelt in his study, dusting his name off a kind of threat. "They're saying you're overreacting." The voice came through the speaker, sharp and tired. "You can't audit half the portfolio without warning. It looks like panic." "Send the inspectors anyway," Cassian said. "No notice. No filters." "They'll dig up things you don't want surfaced," another board member warned. "They'll dig up things I should have seen," Cassian replied. Calls stacked on calls. Operations complained about costs. Legal warned about exposure. One director laughed and said, "You're acting like this is personal." Cassian ended the call before he said something he couldn't take back. He signed the audit order himself. When his assistant hesitated, he said, "Do it now." He came home early that afternoon, the house quieter than usual. As he passed his office, light spilled from beneath the door. He stopped. He was sure he'd turned everything off. The door was unlocked. His laptop sat open on the desk, screen awake. An email draft filled the display. No subject, no greeting. Just 4 words typed into the body, steady and plain. What else is there? His hands went cold. He hadn't written that. The draft was addressed to the same anonymous chain that had sent the videos and photos. The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. Patient. Waiting. He checked the keyboard history. No recent use logged under his account. The house system showed nothing unusual. No alerts, no forced entry. Behind him, a soft sound. Fabric brushing fabric. "Mr. Rourke?" He turned. McKenna stood in the doorway with a stack of folded shirts held against her chest. Her ribs still kept her movements careful, but her eyes were calm. They flicked once to the screen, then back to his face. "You used my computer," he said. "You left it open," she replied. "The light was on. I thought someone forgot to close the door." "That doesn't write words," he said. "No," she said. "You did that part. Just not with your hands." "You accessed my account," he said. "Yes," McKenna answered. The honesty hit harder than denial. He stepped back, the chair scraping. "You could have cost me everything," he said. "This is illegal." "So was the threat in that audio," she replied. "So was the leak you sold without looking." "You had no right," he said. "I had no elevator," she said. "No heat that stayed on. No office that answered. Rights are slow when your ribs are cracked." "You moved my calendar," he said. "You sent me evidence." "I opened doors," she said. "You walked through them." "You left my laptop open on purpose?" "I left it open the way you leave buildings open," she said. "For things you don't want to see." He stared at the blinking cursor. "What else is there?" he read out loud. "That's the question," McKenna said. "Once you ask it, the rest comes to you." "You turned my system against me," he said. "I showed you how it already worked," she replied. "You just weren't the one it worked for." He felt the ground shift, slow and deep. The wrong number, the calendar, the copier, the open laptop. It hadn't been chaos, it had been direction. How many open doors do we leave for wrong things and close for the right people? McKenna set the shirts down on the chair, aligning them without looking. "You can fire me," she said. "Call the police. Shut everything down. And if I do, then the messages keep coming," she said. "Just not to you." She met his eyes steady. In that moment, Cassian understood the truth that chilled him most. The wrong number had never ended. It had simply found a better way to speak. "I could have you arrested," Cassian said. The words came out flat, like a line he'd practiced before meaning it. "Accessing my accounts, sending evidence from my system. That crosses lines." McKenna didn't move. "For showing you your own buildings?" she asked. "For letting your eyes land where your money already lives?" "You don't get to decide what's legal," he said. "No," she agreed. "People like you decide that. People like me decide what works." She stepped closer, careful of her ribs. "I filed complaints," she said. "I waited in offices. I stood under signs with your name and filled out forms that went nowhere. Official lines are slow by design. They calm you while they keep you quiet." "You could have gone to the city," he said. "I did," she replied. "I could have gone again. And again. And maybe in a year someone would send a letter with new rules while my ceiling kept leaking." She glanced at the laptop. "I needed a faster door." "So, you broke in," he said. "I walked through," she corrected. You left it open. He exhaled, sharp. Tell me the truth, he said. Was the text an accident? McKenna looked at the floor, then at him. I was on my side, she said. The pain came in waves. I opened my sister's contact and stared at her number. I didn't want her to hear me cry. I didn't want her to come running when she had her own mess to survive. She paused. Then I thought about the letters. Your logo in the corner. How his face changed when he read them. How he laughed because the words sounded big but never reached him. You changed the number, Cassian said. Yes, she answered. 1 digit. To test me, he said. To test power, she replied. If the message bounced, I'd know it was all noise. If it landed, I'd see who answered when the pain didn't belong to them. It was wrong for your sister, he said. It was wrong for her, McKenna agreed. Right for you. Cassian felt something tilt inside him. So this whole thing, he said, the videos, the calendar, the copier, came after, she said. You chose that part. I chose? You replied, she said. You came. You kept reading. You could have blocked the number, told your assistant, handed it off. You didn't. You set me up, he said. I adjusted your starting point, McKenna replied. What you did with it was yours. He thought of the audits, the sale he stopped, the board calls he ignored. He thought of the kid under the leak. You used my guilt, he said. I used your reach, she said. What you feel about it is your business. Silence settled between them. Not anger, not fear. Something heavier. You're not afraid of me, he said. I'm careful of you, she replied. Fear gives men like you more power than you need. And what happens now? He asked. McKenna looked toward the window, toward the river cutting through dark. You're moving, she said. That was the work. And you? I'm almost finished, she said. With what? With you, McKenna answered. The words landed soft and final. Cassian realized then that the biggest risk wasn't the board or the law. It was that once his power was fully redirected, the woman who aimed it might walk away and leave him alone with what he'd finally chosen to see. The word notice on the flap hit harder than any number. The envelope sat in the center of his desk, his name on it in small script. He already knew whose hand it was. Inside, the letter was simple. Mr. Rourke, I am giving my notice. 2 weeks, as the handbook says. Thank you for the work and for answering a message that was not meant for you. My sister has a place now in one of your better buildings. The elevator works. The window closes. Her boy sleeps through the night. My ribs are healing. That is enough reason to leave while they still remember how. McKenna. He read it again, waiting to find a hook. There wasn't one. No ask, no deal, no hint she might change her mind. She had decided, and he was only being informed. On his screen, audit reports kept landing. Buildings he had known as lines on a chart now came with lists. Failed alarms, broken locks, mold, blocked exits. When he spread the reports beside the anonymous photos and audio, the pattern was exact. What the inspectors found had been shown to him days before. Someone had mapped his failures, then made sure he could never claim surprise. Every line on the page led back to his logo and to that first text. Help me. For years he had owned these places on paper. Now he could see what that ownership looked like. He went to the linen room. The air was damp and warm. Machines hissed. McKenna stood at a long table folding sheets into stacks. When she looked up, her face was calm, like the letter was just another task she had already finished. You're quitting, he said. Yes, she said. 14 days, like the rules say. You could have asked for more, he said. You moved an entire company. You don't want anything for yourself? I wanted my sister out of that hallway, she replied. She is. I wanted you to see what you signed. You do. That's already more than most men with your name ever give. I can make you head of household, he said. Raise your pay, give you people under you. Benefits. A car. You'd never have to worry about a man like him again. She smoothed the edge of a sheet with her palm. You talk like this house is its own country, she said. Like your storms stop at the front gate. You'd be safe here, he insisted. I'd be tied here, McKenna said. Tied to your mood, your bored, your fear of shame. I've had enough of other people's power in my ribs. My power isn't his, Cassian said. Today it isn't, she answered. Today you can't stand hearing about leaks and dark stairs, but money hurts, and when it does, people forget fast. I won't build my life on the hope you stay uncomfortable. He felt the truth cut. I came here to heal, she said. Not to become a prop in your story about how you changed. If someone told you this and walked away, would you let them go or chain them with comfort? So, this was always the plan, he said. Move me, then leave. My plan, McKenna said, was to make sure you couldn't say you never knew. After that, it's between you and the roofs with your name on them. In the hiss of the linen room, watching her stack one final sheet, he truly accepted it. In 14 days, she would walk out of his house, and nothing he owned could stop her. Is this it? The question hung in the doorway between them. Morning light pooled on the floor. McKenna stood with her small suitcase by her feet, coat on, canvas tote over her shoulder. No uniform, no collar, just herself. This is it, Cassian said. Ms. Lon lingered behind him, pretending to check a list on her tablet. Staff moved quieter than usual, like the house was holding its breath. I can have a car take you, he said. Driver, anything you need. You already did that once, McKenna replied. From one version of your walls to another. I'll choose my own ride this time. At least, let me send money, he said, for your sister, for her boy. You've already paid them, she said, in heat that stays on and windows that close. That was always the real bill. He tried again. If you ever need, I know which digit to change, she said. No anger, no warmth. Just that steady, careful tone. She gave Ms. Lan a small nod, then opened the door herself and stepped out. The river air slid in as she left, cool and sharp, and then the door shut and the house swallowed the sound. Later, when the noise of the day had come back, he climbed to the small room under the skylight. The bed was made. Wardrobe empty. No clothes, no bottles, no scent. It was like she had never lived there at all. Except for the phone. A cheap little cell lay on the nightstand, face down. No case. One thin crack across the back. He picked it up. It still had power. The home screen showed one thread pinned to the top, one name. McKenna. He opened it. Help me. He broke my ribs. His own replies below, recorded like someone had been saving a copy of the man he used to be. Each message felt smaller now, like he had been trying to bargain with a fire. He scrolled to the empty field at the bottom. The predictive bar lit up with faint gray words, the way phones do when they remember what you almost said. You're welcome. 3 ghost words. Never sent. She had typed them once, then erased them. Somewhere between pain and leaving, she had decided he didn't need to read her thanks. He set the cheap phone back down, screen dark, and left the room with more questions than answers. If you saw that unsent line, what would you think she really felt about you? In his office, his own phone buzzed. New message, unknown number, no name. Sir, I live in one of your buildings. The stairwell light has been out for months. My mother fell last night. She bruised her hip. I told the office 3 times. I don't know who else to tell. I'm sorry if this is the wrong number. He stared at it. The words were different, but his chest felt the same tight pull as the night he read, He broke my ribs. There was no McKenna moving his calendar now. No one sliding videos into his inbox from inside his own walls. Just a tenant in the dark, hoping a stranger might answer. He picked up the cheap phone with one hand and held his own in the other. 2 devices. 2 versions of himself. Before and after. This time, whatever he did next would not be her test. It would be his. No one else in the room to tell him what to do. Cassian looked from one screen to the other. Then he started typing. You reached the right person. That was the first thing he typed. A reply came almost at once. I'm so sorry to bother you, sir. I didn't know who else to try. If this is wrong, please ignore it. It's not wrong, he wrote. What building? What stairwell? East Bank Towers, Block C, the tenant answered. 3rd floor stairs. The light went out in winter. The office keeps saying they'll fix it soon. My mother slipped last night. She says she's fine, but she grabbed the rail so hard her hand is swollen. He pictured a woman in the half-dark, reaching for a rail that might not be there. How many times had he seen lighting replacement as a small line in a budget, easy to cut? He forwarded the message to operations with a priority tag. Then he added something he had never written on a work order before. Send an electrician tonight. Then audit every stairwell light in every building we own. I want photos and signed reports by the end of the week. Operations emailed back almost at once. Is this really necessary? Yes, he replied. Treat it as urgent safety, not decor. He went back to the tenant. An electrician is coming tonight, he typed. If they don't come, or if the light goes out again, text me back here. Thank you, the tenant wrote. I didn't think anyone up there would answer. I really am sorry for bothering you. He stared at that line, as if he lived, on a cloud, not just a hill. You're not bothering me, he started to write. He stopped, hearing McKenna's voice in his head. People like me decide what works. He erased it and wrote instead. I'm glad you reached me. If a stranger told you they were afraid to walk down their own stairs, would you feel like they were bothering you or warning you? Most people swallow that fear and walk anyway, alone and silent inside. The next morning, the first report from operations landed on his desk. Multiple properties, multiple notes. Stairwell 2A, light out. Stairwell 3C, water damage around fixture. Basement stairs, fixture missing. Someone had divided the pages into 2 piles with small stickies. Fixed and still pending. On the last page, beside a list of buildings with repeated complaints, a line of handwriting stood out in black ink. We need a safety checklist. Something that applies to every building, every time. He didn't recognize the hand. It was not his operations, director's neat, stiff script, or his assistant's rounded loops. He walked the pages down to operations himself. Who wrote this? He asked, tapping the margin. No one claimed it. They checked their own notes, shook their heads. We just filled in the fields, sir, one manager said. We didn't add comments. Under that line, in smaller, tighter letters, another note waited. We also need someone whose number works. He stared at that second line for a long time. In his mind, he could hear McKenna again, calm and precise. I pretended to be someone whose voice matters. Somewhere between her leaving and this moment, the idea had slipped from her hands into someone else's. Staff, maybe. Or a tenant who had watched a simple fix happen because one wrong text found the right pocket. He called security. Who handled this report? He asked. Who wrote on it? Security checked logs, camera clips, sign-in sheets. 3 people printed and passed it, they said. None of them admit to adding any notes. As far as the system is concerned, no one touched it after printing. Paper doesn't write on itself, he said. Then you've got a ghost with a pen, security replied. He hung up and looked at the lines again. We need someone whose number works. When did his private phone become that number? At what point had tenants started trading it like a secret key? How many people think they're bothering when they ask not to fall in the dark? He leaned back in his chair. Out on the river, a barge moved slow, cutting the water in half. Somewhere across the city, stairwells were being checked because he had finally decided that a text to his personal phone was his business. Another thought slid in, cold. If his number could spread this quietly among tenants, it could spread just as quietly through board gossip. A man who answered every cry in the dark sounded noble in a story, and unstable in a quarterly review. His own phone buzzed on the desk. For a second, he thought it was another tenant, but the name that lit the screen was one he knew from board meetings and profit calls. His CFO. "We need to talk," the message read. "The board is moving without you." "Who wrote this?" Cassian's voice cut across the operations floor. Phones kept ringing, but hands slowed. He stood in the middle of the room with the stairwell report in his hand, the note at the bottom circled in red. "We also need someone whose number works." "We filled in the boxes, sir," a manager said. "Dates, times, repair status. That's all. Maybe someone upstairs added the line later." A younger staffer glanced at the words and dropped his eyes. Maybe one of the assistants upstairs added it, he muttered. Cassian took in their faces. No one wanted to claim the sentence. No one wanted to be the person who had written out loud what everyone knew, that people only moved fast when the right man felt bothered. Fear slid through the room, bending shoulders, tightening jaws. "I'm not here to fire whoever wrote it," he said. "I'm here because they're right." No one stepped forward. No one met his eyes for long. He set the report on a central desk, ink side up, like a mirror the floor could see if they chose, then walked away. In the elevator up, his phone buzzed. The same tenant from East Bank Towers. "Sir, my mother walked down the stairs today without holding the wall," the message read. "The light is back. She told me to say, thank you." He pictured an older woman taking each step with her hand free, not braced for a fall. One bulb, one work order, and the way she moved through her own home had changed. "Thank you for telling me," he typed. "If anything breaks again, or if they stop listening in the office, text this number." "I don't want to be a problem," came the answer. "You're not a problem," he wrote back. "You're the point. If someone texted you to say, 'We can breathe a little easier now,' would you shrug and move on, or would it stay with you?" Those words followed him the rest of the day, under every meeting and email. That night, he didn't go to his office. He went outside. The river was a dark band under the sky, carrying city light. He sat on a low stone wall near the water, coat open, tie loose, the house glowing behind him. In his hand, he held the cheap phone. The crack on the back caught the lamplight. On the screen, the last thread showed the first messages. "Help me. He broke my ribs." His replies below looked smaller than he felt now. He thought about calling the number McKenna had once given for her sister. With his reach, it would be easy. One request to security, one search through records, and he could stand outside some new door. He pictured that knock, the man from the letters holding a phone asking, "How are your ribs now?" It felt less like care and more like begging for a grade. He put the thought away. Some tests don't come with supervision. Not. Knowing where McKenna stood, what she thought, whether she was watching, that uncertainty was part of his exam now. Was he fixing these buildings for her, for his name, or because once you've seen that ceiling over a child's bed, you can't look away? His other phone buzzed in his pocket. The corporate one. The sender was the CFO. "We need to talk," the message read. "The board is moving without you." The river kept flowing. Cassian stared at the screen, knowing the same choices that were easing fear in dark stairwells were now shaking loose the power he'd always quietly taken for granted. "You're bleeding money." The CFO opened, no greeting. "Audits, emergency repairs, outside inspectors. This pace can't continue." Red numbers filled the slide behind him. Cassian sat at the head of the table. What couldn't continue, he said, was pretending we didn't know what our buildings looked like inside. Legal leaned forward. No one says ignore safety. She said. But mass surprise audits? Halting sales? It reads as panic. You're acting like we're already on trial. We will be, Cassian answered, if a judge ever sees what I've seen. One of his father's oldest allies folded his hands. Your father understood noise, he said. He knew not every complaint should move the whole machine. Old buildings creak, tenants exaggerate. You're letting anecdotes run the company. You call a kid under a leaking ceiling an anecdote? Cassian asked. We call it context, the man replied. You fix what you must, not everything you feel. The CFO tapped the screen. We had a plan, he said. Sell salvage heights, offload risk, bank the gain. Instead, you froze the sale and turned a property we could have sold into a cost we now carry. That property holds families, Cassian said. If the next video from that place shows someone dead under our logo, we won't be arguing about one bad quarter. We need you to separate emotion from strategy, Legal said. I'm finally combining them, he replied. My name is on the deeds and the lawsuits. I don't get to hide behind line items anymore. Silence settled. Then the older man breathed out. We've discussed options, he said, quietly. There's concern about your judgment. Some of us think a steadier hand might protect this company better. You're talking about removing me, Cassian said. We're talking about giving you terms, the CFO replied. 30 days. You prove this repair strategy protects shareholder value. Insurance savings, lower legal exposure, better lender terms, something real. If you can't, the board reserves the right to change leadership. 30 days to prove that keeping people from falling through our floors is good business, Cassian said. 30 days, the older man repeated. After that, keep your conscience. We'll keep the company. If your comfort depended on someone else's leaking ceiling, would you still call it just business? It's easy to talk about margins when you've never counted how many drops hit a pan beside a child's bed. Once you've seen the cracks, you can't unsee the hands reaching up, hoping someone with a working number will answer. Cassian thought of Makina on the clinic table, the boy under the stain, the mother whispering promises she couldn't keep. He heard her calm voice again. I adjusted your starting point. The rest is you. He left the boardroom with the 30-day clock beating under his ribs. In the glass hallway, his reflection broke into pieces, a man who had become a risk to people who once praised him for not asking questions. Back in his office, a new email waited at the top of his inbox. The subject line was plain. You should see this. The sender was another disposable address. The body held one link and two words. Salvage Heights. He clicked. A video window opened, frozen on the front of a building he owned. Men in work uniforms stood by a truck, laughing, loading pieces of broken wall into the trunk of a dark sedan instead of the dumpster. As the first frame moved, a knot rose in him. Whatever this was, it wasn't bad maintenance. It was proof the rot he'd started to fight wasn't scared of his 30 days. The video started mid-motion, already wrong. A wall panel slid into frame, mold dark on one side, clean on the other. Two men in work jackets laughed as they broke it apart with gloved hands. No masks, no caution. Just speed. Cassian paused the clip, then rewound. The timestamp showed Salvage Heights mid-morning. He recognized the hallway immediately. He'd walked it once, thinking the smell was old paint. He played it again. The men dragged debris toward a truck marked with one of his approved contractor logos. That part made sense. What didn't was where the trash went next. Not the dumpster. They carried it. Passed straight to a dark sedan parked half out of frame. The trunk popped open. Bags went in. Wood, tile, pieces of wall. evidence disappearing by design. Cassian leaned closer. The camera dipped, shaky but deliberate, and caught the license plate. Clear enough to read. Too clear to be chance. He pulled the number into his system. The name came back at once. Operations Deputy Director. The room felt smaller. The man in charge of approving repairs, signing off inspections, and hiring vendors owned the car swallowing the proof. Cassian scrubbed through the rest. One of the workers said, "Just mark it complete." Another answered, "He already did." A laugh followed. This wasn't neglect. It was theater. Fake repairs to pass surface checks. Real damage hauled away so no one could test it. Bills paid, reports clean. He called security and sent the clip without comment. They arrived fast. "Pull every contract tied to this vendor," Cassian said. "Freeze payments, quietly, and keep this off the main servers." Security nodded, already moving. "If this goes public before we map it, it blows wider than Salvage Heights." "Do it anyway," Cassian said. "We don't protect thieves because they wear our badges." Security hesitated. There's something else." Cassian waited. "Whoever filmed this," the lead said, "was close. Not a tenant filming from a doorway. This angle is inside the work zone. They knew when the crew would move the trash." "So?" Cassian asked. "So they're exposed," security said. "If the deputy figures out who caught him, that person's in danger. This kind of setup doesn't stay quiet without teeth." Cassian felt the weight shift. For weeks, the fight had lived in emails and boardrooms. Now it had a face and a parking lot. "Find the deputy," he said. "Secure his access. Don't tip him off." "And the source?" security asked. Cassian looked back at the frozen frame. The camera had dipped at the end, catching a scuffed shoe near the wall. Cheap. Worn. Someone who stood there every day without being seen. "Protect them," he said, "whoever they are." After security left, he sat alone with the paused image. Salvage Heights again. The place where all of this had started. He thought of Makina's words. Men fear losing the house they shout in. He had assumed she meant rich men like her employer. Now he saw it applied just as well to his own team. Was her network still out there? Janitors? Porters? Tenants? People who moved through buildings quietly, watching who lied and who listened. The thought cut both ways. If they existed, they were why he knew the truth. But they were also vulnerable, standing in hallways with phones while men with power learned they'd been seen. For the first time, Cassian understood the risk Makina had taken by changing one digit. This was no longer just about money or guilt. The danger had moved from his inbox to the ground. "You're firing him?" Security sounded half impressed, half afraid. They sat across from Cassian with the Salvage Heights video paused between them, the operations deputy's license plate clear in the frame. "Yes," Cassian said. "Today." Quietly. His access is revoked, his laptop seized, and HR gets a neat reason that doesn't mention crime until legal is ready. "If we report this vendor and their fake repairs," security said, "they won't go down alone. They'll drag names with them. Maybe ours, maybe yours." "Then we go first," he replied. "Terminate the contract, send our evidence to the city, and hand them the deputy's name before he has time to hand them mine." Security studied him. "This doesn't look like self-protection anymore," the lead said. "It looks like you're cleaning your own house with the lights fully on." "That's the point," Cassian answered. "I'm done letting men like him stand in the dark under my logo." When they left, he spread papers across his desk. Printed emails, screenshots, transcripts of audio files, texts from tenants, the kid under the leak, the threat about immigration, the blocked fire escape, the stairwell light. He drew lines with a pen, locations, dates, names mentioned in passing, addresses circled into a rough cluster on the same side of the city. East Salvage, East Bank, two other buildings he'd only known as codes in a quarterly report. On another sheet, he wrote the numbers that had texted him directly. Next to each, notes: stairwell, leak, lock, heat. Threads through the same neighborhoods. Some tenants had never met but knew a cousin, a co-worker, a woman in the laundry room who knew a number that sometimes worked. These weren't random cries. They were a network, passed from mouth to mouth in hallways, back staircases, and late-night buses. His thumb hovered over the first text in his phone log. The tenant whose mother had almost fallen. He typed, "How did you get this number?" The answer took a minute. "A friend gave it to me," the tenant wrote. "Who?" Cassian asked. "She told me not to use her name," the tenant replied. "She said if we were desperate and nobody in the office listened, we could try this. She said, if he answers once, he'll answer again." He swallowed. She. The word sat there like a familiar outline. He typed before he could think better of it. What did she look like? Another pause. Longer this time. Small, the tenant wrote. Brown skin. Careful eyes. She said she used to clean for important people who didn't always like what she showed them. McKenna, without saying McKenna. She had left his house, but not his buildings. Somewhere between her job ending and this moment, she had slipped his number into other lives like a key. Someone out there is passing around lifelines in secret. Would you even notice if you were the one holding the rope? Another message appeared from the tenant. Is this number still safe? Or should we stop using it now? Cassian stared at the question. Safe for whom, he wondered. For him or for them? His fingers moved over the screen. Whatever he wrote next would decide if those quiet threads kept running through his properties or snapped and fell back into silence. He took a breath, feeling the board's 30-day clock ticking under his ribs, and began to type his answer. Outside his office window, the city kept moving, blind to this small pause. In 100 halls he would never walk. People waited to see whether the man on the hill would keep listening tonight. Yes, it's safe. That was what he finally sent. Not a half answer. Not a delay. A clear line. This number is open. Thank you, the tenant wrote. I'll tell the others. He stared at that last sentence. Others. How many quiet trades had already been made in stairwells and laundry rooms? His name passed like a rumor. For years, he'd let managers and forms catch that fear for him. Tonight, he chose to stand at the end, of the line himself. The flood didn't arrive as a wave. It came in drips, like the leak over that child's bed. Sir, our window won't close and the wind keeps my baby up. Mr. Rourke, the lock on the front door is broken. Strangers walk in at night. The heat cuts off after midnight. The elevator shakes between floors. Some messages apologized before they asked for anything. I'm sorry to disturb you. I know you're busy. If you can't help, I understand. He answered each one. What's the address? What floor? When did this start? He forwarded screenshots to operations and copied safety. Urgent. Document with photos. Call me when it's done. He set deadlines. He requested proof. He told staff, if a tenant texts me directly, you call them back today. Nights that used to end with quiet drinks now ended with his thumb moving over glass, turning loose threads into orders and follow-ups. His phone stopped being a toy. It became a small, bright list of people who had run out of other doors. His assistant noticed. You're different with that phone lately, she said one afternoon. You're reading, not scrolling. He locked the screen. I'm working, he said. You used to send things down, she said. Now you pull them in. Do you want me to set up a separate line, something we can staff? A tenant hotline that doesn't hit your pocket every hour? He pictured another number on glossy paper, answered by someone who would learn how to say soon until it meant never. Another layer between him and the ceilings he was finally willing to see. No, he said. It stays with me. "That's not sustainable," she replied. "It wasn't sustainable before," he said. "We just pretended it was." She watched him, then nodded. "If you ever want help holding that," she said, "you only have to ask." He nodded but didn't hand it over. Some weight he had earned. If even one of these messages got to your phone, would you mute it? Or change because of it? Most people keep their lives one step away from the places their signatures land. He had lived like that for years. Now every buzz tied a body to a number he used to call an asset. As the 30 days closed in, he did something his father would have called theatrical. He printed tenant texts, photos of leaks fixed and locks replaced, inspector reports before and after repairs, letters from city offices noting a drop in emergency complaints. He slid each page into plastic sleeves and clipped them into a thick binder, not just stories, evidence, cost, and response, side by side. On the day of the board meeting, he walked the glass hall toward the room with the river at its back, the binder heavy in his hand. Behind that door waited men who believed risk lived only in numbers. He opened the door and stepped inside, carrying proof that their real last resort was not a bank or a lawyer. It was him now, and the people who had learned quietly that his number finally worked. The vote ended without applause. Chairs scraped, papers slid back into folders. The CFO cleared his throat and said, "We'll proceed under a revised framework." Legal called it risk control. The old ally said nothing at all. Cassian stayed in his seat until the room emptied, listening to the hum of the building that still belonged to him. They hadn't removed him. They hadn't praised him either. They'd taken his work and dressed it in safer language, the kind investors could repeat without choking. Repairs were now liability reduction. Answering tenants was early escalation. His phone was direct intake. He knew the truth. He had survived by inches, by timing, by proof heavy enough to sit on a table and not be ignored. In the hallway, his assistant exhaled. "You kept your chair," she said. "For now," he answered. The binder felt lighter in his hands than it should have. He replayed the meeting in his head as he walked, the way each objection had tried to turn human cost into abstract risk. He remembered the slide that showed declining insurance premiums after repairs, the quiet shift in faces when numbers finally agreed with decency. One director had asked if this attention would invite more complaints. Cassian had answered that complaints already existed. Ignoring them just kept the bill off their desk. That answer hadn't won him friends, but it had closed the argument. Power, he learned, only listened when truth learned its language. Back in his office, an email waited. No subject, no sender name, just an image loading slow. A hallway, freshly painted. Lights on. Kids' drawings taped to the wall with crooked smiles and bright suns. The floor shone like someone cared who walked on it. Under the photo, one line. "This is what it looks like when you don't disappear." Cassian leaned back. The words landed softer than praise and heavier than threat. He typed a reply without drafting it first. "Who are you, now that she's gone?" The answer came an hour later. Same network, different hands. A second line followed, almost casual. "She says hello, by the way." His chest tightened, not with longing, but recognition. McKenna hadn't vanished. She had stepped sideways, letting others carry what she started. Janitors, tenants, cousins. A map made of people who watched and remembered. He typed again, then stopped. There was nothing useful to ask. The point wasn't to find her. It was to keep doing the work without needing her shadow. He closed the email and stood, looking out at the river cutting the city in half. He checked the cheap phone too, the cracked one he still carried. No new alerts there, just old threads and silence. It reminded him that systems fail when people leave, but habits remain when responsibility takes root. He pocketed it, a quiet weight, proof that attention, once learned, does not forget. That was the real inheritance she left behind, harder to sell, harder to escape, forever binding. His phone buzzed. Another message. New number. Our back door won't lock, it read. Someone tried it last night. The office says to wait. I don't want my kids sleeping scared. He grabbed his coat from the chair, moving before his mind could argue. Outside the glass, traffic slid by, ordinary and loud. He paused with one hand on the door, a thought catching him mid-step. Was this urgency finally his? Or was it still hers, moving through him, a ghost in the system that only existed as long as he kept answering? He opened the door and went anyway. He turned the car before he could talk himself out of it. Traffic lights blurred past as he drove without a driver, without calls, following an address pulled from a quiet corner of his own files. McKenna's name sat there as an emergency contact, untouched, waiting. He hated that it took this long to look. The building by the river wasn't impressive. Concrete, balconies, laundry humming somewhere inside. He parked and sat, hands on the wheel, watching people come and go who had no idea why his chest felt tight. This wasn't a rescue. It wasn't an apology tour. He told himself he was here to listen, nothing more. He took the stairs. 4th floor. A door with a paper wreath taped crooked. He knocked once, then waited. Footsteps. A pause long enough to measure him. The door opened halfway. A woman close to McKenna's age looked him over, eyes sharp, shoulders set. She said you'd come, the woman said. She wasn't sure you'd like what you find. I'm not here to change anything, Cassian said. I owe her a conversation. The woman studied him, then opened the door wider. You're late, she said, not unkindly. But you're not early enough to pretend you didn't know. Inside, the apartment smelled of soap and dinner, a child's shoes by the wall, a stack of mail neatly sorted. The woman gestured him in. I'm her sister, she said. She circles this place, doesn't land long. Is she safe? Cassian asked. She's careful, her sister said. Careful is how she stays free. Cassian nodded. He felt the weight of every building he owned settle behind his eyes. She changed how I see things, he said. I wanted to thank her. And to understand. Her sister leaned against the counter. She didn't do it for thanks. She did it because no one should have to break bones to be believed. Most people never go back to face the person who changed them. Would you? It's easier to move forward pretending the mirror never existed. Easier to call growth a phase and return to comfort. Standing there, Cassian knew this step mattered more than any vote or binder. Sit, the sister said. If she wants to see you, she will. He sat. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt final and temporary at once. From somewhere deeper in the apartment, a floorboard creaked. Cassian looked up, heart steady, not knowing if the next face he saw would forgive him, challenge him, or simply pass by. He waited, listening as the river outside kept moving, carrying all the wrong numbers downstream. Somewhere beyond the hall, water ran through pipes, steady and loud, reminding him of ceilings and sinks and all the places sound hides damage. He thought of the first night, the wrong number, the ribs, the silence between messages. He had come here without guards, without leverage, without a plan to win. If she never stepped out, this visit would still count. Listening did not require permission. It required patience and the courage to stay when nothing was promised. He set his phone face down on the table, not as an offer, but as proof he could wait. He breathed slowly, letting the moment stretch, accepting that answers arrive when they choose, not when power knocks. No footsteps yet, just the shared quiet, thick with meaning, waiting to break. Whatever happened next would finish the story she started. And he stayed still, because leaving again would be the real failure. That much, at least, he understood. Now, here, waiting. McKenna was at the table when he finally saw her, pencil in hand. Her nephew sat beside her, legs swinging, workbook open. She leaned close, not touching, letting him solve it himself. "Read it again," she said softly. The boy frowned, erased, tried once more. She nodded, just once. Cassian stopped a few steps inside the room. No announcement, no pause in the air, just a woman helping a child with fractions, like that was all she had ever done. She looked up and met his eyes, calm, grounded, no surprise. "You found the place," she said. "You left a trail," he answered. She turned back to the page. "Finish that line, then go wash your hands." The boy obeyed, slipping past Cassian without a glance. When the sink started running, McKenna finally faced him fully. "Hello," she said. "Hello," he replied. They stood there, two people who had already said everything that mattered without being in the same room. "I stayed," Cassian said after a moment. "The board tried to move me. I didn't let them." She nodded, as if he'd told her the weather. "I heard." "You heard?" "Your name moves now," she said. "In mouths that used to whisper it. Tenants say it like a question, like something that might answer back." He swallowed. "I didn't do it alone." "No," she agreed. "You didn't." He stepped closer but stopped short of the table. "I didn't come to take anything from you," he said. "I wanted to understand what I am now." She studied him, eyes steady, not unkind. "You're a test," she said. "One you keep retaking. That doesn't sound permanent." "It isn't," she said. "That's the point." The water shut off. A door opened down the hall, then closed. The apartment felt smaller, fuller, alive. "I changed one digit," she continued, "not to trap you. To see what you'd do when it rang. Most people answer once. Some never answer again." "I'm still answering," he said. "For now," she replied. He let that sit. "Is that enough?" She didn't answer right away. She picked up the pencil, set it straight, then looked back at him. "Enough changes," she said. "Enough proves." Silence stretched. Not heavy. Measured. She tilted her head. "Tell me something," she said. "When the next landlord writes you, not a tenant, someone with papers and lawyers, someone who sounds like you used to." He waited. "Will you answer them too?" she asked. He opened his mouth, then stopped. There were a dozen answers he could give. Promises. Lines he'd practiced in boardrooms. None of them felt right here, in this room, with a child's homework still warm on the table. McKenna watched him, not pushing, not rescuing, just waiting. He realized then she wasn't asking for reassurance. She was measuring whether he still needed her to stand between him and the truth. The sink hummed faintly. The river moved outside. Cassian took a breath, searching for the answer that didn't belong to power or apology. McKenna's eyes never left his face. He left without an answer to her question. Not because he did not have one, but because any promise he made in that small room would sound like a shield, not a truth. At the door, McKenna's sister thanked him for taking off his shoes. McKenna just said, "Take care of your numbers," and turned back to clear the table. "No car?" her sister asked when he reached for the handle. "I drove myself," Cassian said. "That's new," McKenna said, not looking up. He stepped into the hallway, river air slipping in around him, carrying the smell of a building where the heat worked and the light stayed on. There was no big goodbye, no handshake, no touch. What passed between them was simple. an acceptance that whatever came next would not be lived under the same roof. In the car, he sat with the engine off. The building lights pricked the dark like small answers to questions he used to ignore. His phone buzzed in his pocket, the sound pulling him forward. New number. New fear. Mr. Rourke, I hope this is okay. Our elevator keeps stopping between floors. My father uses a cane. Yesterday it jerked and he almost fell. The office said it's not urgent. I'm scared he'll get stuck. I'm sorry if this is the wrong number. The words hit the same place. He broke my ribs had hit, not as shock now, but as a call he already knew how to read. He typed without hesitating. It's not the wrong number. Tell me the building and elevator bank. I'll send someone tonight. If they say it's not urgent again, text me back. The reply came fast, like the sender had been holding their breath. Thank you. I didn't think you'd see this. He sent the address to operations, marked urgent, named the elevator company, demanded proof of a full check, not just a reset. It took him less than a minute. It would change the way leaving home felt tomorrow. Only then did he reach into his coat and pull out the cheap phone. The crack on the back had grown a little, a thin, pale line. He powered it on. The screen lit to the old thread. Help me. He broke my ribs. His reply sat beneath, frozen, a record of the night he decided not to ignore a message that did not belong to him and somehow did. He placed the cheap phone on the console beside his own. Two small rectangles of glass. Two routes into the same life. Looking at them together, he understood the twist McKenna had lived with long before he caught up. There was no real wrong number anymore. Not once you knew what your walls were holding. There were only calls that reached someone willing to admit they were responsible, and calls that died on systems pretending to be doors. If this pulled at something in you, maybe it's because you know one message can change everything, and ignoring it is also choice. Somewhere in your own world there's a version of help me sitting unread, waiting to see which kind of person is holding the phone. The car sat still around him. Cassian leaned back, listening to the elevator in his mind, the one that had carried him from numbers to names. The screen dimmed, then brightened with a new alert from another unknown number, another small life knocking. He didn't check who it was before he started typing. Because now, any help me that reached his screen was, without question, meant for him.